It was our first time here last year. Yannick and Kai, two great guys from my team. And we traveled here a day earlier last year. So basically, we were here the entire day of like the first dinner night. And my boss, or our boss, he happened to be in the area here as well for vacation. So that's our fleet chief with one of our training captains who is also responsible for doing the assessments. So basically hiring new pilots within the company. And they were here in the area for vacation, driving motorcycles. And they were like, hey guys, you're here, we know the area, it's really nice. Why don't we just meet up for a coffee or something? We're like, sure, this is the location. Looks nice, just stop by whenever. And on the first day, besides the dinner that we had in the evening, the only real responsibility for us was to have a 1.5 2-hour one-on-one session with the Web Minerals team on just some topics that we wanted to discuss. But otherwise, it was a free day for us. Anyhow, so we went to the spa and enjoyed the resort, and we kept in touch with the two colleagues of us when they would arrive. We were like, hey, when are they coming? We just want to make sure that we're in a nice area when they pass by. And so we were in the hot tub, we were in the sauna, just enjoying the area. And we get out and we have all these text messages and calls. They're like, hey, where are you? We're here. So we walk by with our bathing robes, and they're sitting there having a coffee, and they're like, oh, hey guys, it's a nice conference, nice work that you're doing here. That's awesome. We're glad that we can pay for the fun that you have here. But they didn't mean it seriously, they meant it in a funny way. But yeah, so Max, you're the one reason, and that's the other reason why I would like to take proof that I can show my bosses that I actually did some work this time and didn't just sit in the hot tub the entire time. So I would like to do a selfie as well, like you did yesterday. We're gonna do it a little differently. So in Austria, do we have, how many German-speaking people do we have here? Hands up. Okay, that's a couple. We have something, it's called Ohrkatzelschwarf. Yeah, who knows what that is? Okay, so it's basically a squirrel's fluffy tail. And I'm gonna read the description of ChatGPT. I mean, I'm a pilot, I'm not that smart. I'm used to just reading checklists, so I have to read this. I can't remember it. Ohrkatzelschwarf is an Austrian word that literally translates to squirrel's tail in English. It's famously known as a tongue twister because of its complex combination of consonants and vowels, making it tricky for non-native speakers, and even some native ones, to pronounce. Breakdown of the word. Oach, a dialectical version of the German word Eich, as in Eichhörnchen, which means squirrel. Katz means cat, but here it's a sound substitution within the word for ease of pronunciation. Schwarf, it's Austrian for Schweif, which means tail. People often use Ohrkatzelschwarf as a playful challenge for foreigners trying to speak Austrian dialect. It has gained popularity outside of Austria and is sometimes used to illustrate the uniqueness and complexity of dialect in Austria. And of course, southern Germany as well, but mainly Austria. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is, let's actually do a trial. I count down to 1 from 3 and everyone tries to say it, okay? I do it once. It's Ohrkatzelschwarf, okay? So 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. That's pretty good. That's enough. 1 practice round is enough. So what we're gonna do now is I'll take the camera, I look up there, you're gonna look at the bald spot on the back of my head because I'm getting older, so I'm losing some hair, and then I count down again. You say Ohrkatzelschwarf and I take the picture, okay? Perfect. Are you guys ready? Let's try to get everyone in here. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Ohrkatzelschwarf. Perfect. I love it. Okay, so now let's get into the more serious stuff. that picture, that was after a long day. I was flying for 13 hours, so that's why I look a little tired. Who am I? I'm Lucas Rosner. I'm a Boeing 777 captain for Aerologic. It's a German cargo airline. We are a joint venture of Lufthansa Cargo and DHL Express. And in addition to flying airplanes, which makes up most of the portion of my salary, I'm also in the flight ops department, which makes up most of the work I do. But anyhow, yeah, that's what I'm doing, and that's why I'm here for. But more importantly, I would like to talk to you guys about some really important topics, namely being sustainability, which in my opinion is or will be aviation's game changer. We'll talk about the timeline, so what happened in the past, what are we doing in the present, and what may we expect in the future. To get a better understanding of the whole concept, so for you to be more or easier to understand, we will go into some general flight and fuel planning procedures. We'll talk about how you can achieve certain goals that you have set. And yes, very important thing, how can we merge sustainability with flight safety without impairing it, maybe even improving it? That should be the ultimate goal. And all of that will be underlined with some real life experiences and examples. Of course, what is a presentation without regulations? Everyone loves them. So I will also get into one or two regulations that are coming up, but it's not gonna be too long. And yeah, in the end, I will give you some insights, and you will have a clear picture why I think sustainability is one of aviation's game changers. So the past. First of all, who heard of web air before? Hands up. Who heard of web air? No one? Okay, good, because it doesn't exist yet. Who knows what's coming in the future? But web air is a fictitious airline that I'm just using in this presentation for some examples. And in the presentation, web air is an operator with 10 long-haul aircraft, and they fly approximately 15 legs, basically meaning 15 takeoffs, 15 landings over the entire company, so spread out over those 10 aircraft a day. And there we have our dear friend, Commander Jamie, and in the past, he would always say to his co-pilots during briefing, you know what, let's take 2 tons of discretionary fuel today, because this will give us approximately 25 minutes of flying time. I just have a feeling we may need it. And the important words are, I have a feeling. So it's not based on any data. He just has a feeling. Anyway, now you may question yourself, why does this even matter? To have a better understanding, we'll go into some fuel planning procedures. So what fuel values do I need when leaving my parking position? You need your taxi fuel. That basically covers everything until you're on the runway going for takeoff. You need your trip fuel. That covers everything from takeoff until landing at destination. You need your contingency fuel. That may be 5% of your trip fuel. Most of the airlines use it with 3%. There's even options where you can use it less, but that's really complicated. So let's just illustrate that you use 3%. You have your most critical point fuel. It's very rarely used, so I'm not gonna go into that too much. Now it's getting interesting. Company planned extra fuel. Company planned extra fuel is an amount of fuel that's supposed to be planned by your company for circumstances that are not unforeseen. So basically, they say you have weather en route, you have weather at destination, like a thunderstorm, you have maybe construction on the airport runway, taxiways, whatever. Just some reason where you can anticipate, okay, you're gonna have a certain amount of delay. Company is supposed to actually put that on the flight plan. And then you have your commander discretionary fuel. That's the fuel that the flight crew, in the end, the commander decides on after reviewing the entire briefing. So basically, after you got all the information, you looked at the flight route, you looked at the weather at destination, en route, alternate airports, you checked the NOTAMs, basically meaning you checked Are there any constructions? Do I have all the runways? What are the local times of arrival? Do I expect any kind of delay? So after your crew got an entire picture of the flight, of the operation you're going to do on that certain day, they decide, do I need more? Do I want more? Do I think that I need more fuel? And that's the fuel that our friend Commander Jamie was talking about in the example. You have your alternate fuel that usually gives you about roughly 30 minutes of flying time. And then you have your final reserve fuel, which should give you exactly 30 minutes of flying time. Regarding the colors, the red values you're going to use for sure if you fly to your destination. The amber values you may use, meaning they may be available. Green values are definitely available, should be available in 99.9% of the times. And if you look at that, we can see that most of the times you arrive with minimum of 1 hour of flying time. That's a lot. Another question, how much carbon dioxide is emitted during the combustion of 1 kilogram of aviation fuel? Does anyone have an idea? Smart guy. Right on. I've actually, yeah, that's impressive. I've never heard anyone, because there's ranges from like 2.7 to 3.3, depends what sources you take. But yeah, as per ICAO from 2017, they say that it's 3.16 kilograms, which is quite a lot. And considering, I mean, we all know it, the heavier the aircraft, the more fuel you burn. I think you guys are trying to understand what my point is. So yeah, let's look at the present. Looking at all that we heard before, we can see now that we need to fly more sustainable. But how can we achieve that? Well, there's certain ways. First of all, there's new technologies, new aircraft, engines, all that stuff coming around. You can optimize your fleet route structure to avoid some minutes, meaning you have less fuel burn. New fuel types. I talked to some people yesterday already. SAF is the thing that's just around the corner that's coming up. New regulations. A little bit more info later on that. But is that really everything that we can do? Good thing? No, it's not. So what are the other options? It's optimization of flight fuel plannings, application of fuel conservative flying procedures, meaning single engine taxi-in, reduced flap landings, optimized cost index, optimized takeoff flap setting, optimized climb, descent, cruise profiles, and speeds. New thing coming up is contrail avoidance. I'm not into the topic too much, but apparently to some studies it can save a lot, maybe like up to 2 to 3%. But it's basically planning flight profiles and routes in order to avoid contrail formation by using weather forecasts, satellite imagery, and other data. And by doing this, the formation of cirrus clouds out of contrails trapping the heat in the lower atmosphere can be avoided. And thus, a significant portion that adds to global warming is removed. I'm always really careful when it comes to numbers from outside. So let's say a company tries to sell you something. They say we save 1%, 2%, 3%. I'm always really careful about that. So also those numbers that I just told you, the 2 to 3%, we will see when it's actually happening. But there are some tests already implemented. So let's get into the interesting topic of optimization of fuel plannings, meaning optimization reduction of company planned extra fuel. We talked about it before. It's the fuel that's planned due to expected delay en route or at destination. And very important, it's planned by the company. That's not the fuel that the pilots decide on after they get the briefing. The company is supposed to plan it. So in an ideal world, Mostly it's not happening like that. But in an ideal world, the pilots would get a briefing where everything that's in the briefing is covered on a fuel perspective. It's different in the real world because of course pilots and dispatchers very often they have different opinions of how much fuel you need for, let's say, a thunderstorm or runway closures or taxiway closures or whatever. But in the ideal world, that's what's supposed to happen. Optimization, reduction of commander, crew, discretionary fuel. And that's the fuel I was talking about before. So that's basically the fuel that the crew decides on if they decide on taking it for delays that they just think is not reflected in the briefing and in the fuel planning yet. So looking at a web air example, let's say a carrying of 1 ton of fuel above the planned fuel burns approximately 150 kilograms of additional fuel due to the increased weight. Okay, Commander Jamie's example. If everybody would do that, and it happened in the past, taking 2 tons of extra fuel on each flight in the web air example would result in 1,642 tons of additional fuel burned every year. That's a lot. But on the other side, if you reduce that and maybe only take that amount of fuel on 5% of the flights, you can save 1,559 tons of fuel, meaning that you could fuel up your middle range car 32,850 times. I'm sure that would be enough for every one of us. So just want to try to get a better understanding of the amount. It's really a lot. But how can you achieve this without impairing safety? Maybe even improving it, because I know it's quite it's a difficult topic to introduce because fuel is often related to safety. So people would say like, oh, you want us to take less fuel? That's not safe. But there's many options to counteract that. So what's really important is that you make fuel decisions based on historical aircraft data, meaning CDPair specific data. That will show you, do we need less? Do we need maybe even more? I mean, we, in our company, for example, we use it, and we had occurrences where we say, okay, this airport, we even need 300, 400 kilograms of taxi fuel more, just because the data showed it to us. And that's the important point. You have to provide the data so everybody can see it and everybody can touch it. Get AI into the game. There's so many tools out there that actually help you a lot. Yeah, use AI tools to, for example, analyze actual fuel consumption and also include flight data monitoring, safety data, to get the bigger picture. Meaning, you compare flight data monitoring data, which basically is all the data from the flight recorders. So you see also get a bigger picture of the safety perspective, and you compare it with the fuel values, and then you can see where do we have a problem regarding safety. That's the point. You need to build an atmosphere of trust amongst crews, meaning provide the data to them. Talk to them, inform them, let them know the facts they need to know for proper decision making. Now you're probably thinking, why is there a canoe in the presentation? What's now going on? It's a rescue boat. Imagine you're in a rescue boat. You feel safe. You're just got off a ship had an accident, you're in a rescue boat, you feel safe. Over there is another big boat coming, you're like, hey, I'm secure, all good. But there's hundreds of other people outside in the water. They're not safe. So for us, like Yannick, me, in our team, we feel kind of safe because we have all the information we need to know. So when we go flying, we can make, I would say, pretty good, pretty accurate decisions on a fuel perspective, because we have all the data, we have all the information we need. Get everyone in your rescue boat. Provide everyone with the information so they have the big picture as well. And then, what's happening in the present now? Commander Jamie says, I agree, based on the data provided and previous experiences, we do not need any discretionary fuel today. The planned contingency fuel should be sufficient to cover unexpected weather and delays. So, another big thing, application of fuel conservative SOPs, namely being single engine taxi-in, which basically means that at taxi-in after landing, you shut one engine down after a certain cooldown period. And in the Weber example, let's say it saves 15 kilograms per minute of CAT. I know it doesn't sound like much, but still, if you calculate it over the year, let's assume, consider a 3-minute application rate for each flight, which is actually pretty conservative. That would add up to 246 tons of fuel saved each year. Almost same values for reduced flap landing. Reduced flap landing is a procedure where you basically reduce the drag of the aircraft on the final approach, and by that avoid a higher fuel flow. So basically save fuel. And in the Weber example, let's assume 40 kilograms of fuel saved per landing. And again, I know it doesn't sound like much, but in the end of the year, it may sum up to 175 tons of fuel saved. So what's my point? Little things matter. Because applied consequently, they make a big difference. And one anecdote from the past. I know we have many Swedish people here. I used to play hockey. I was in Canada for that for 2 years, and I had a really great coach there. He not only was he a great hockey player, he played in the NHL for more than 10 years, but more importantly, he was a great person to actually give you something that you can use in life afterwards. And he would always tell us, he's like, guys, it doesn't matter what you do. Play sports, play hockey, what you do in life, if it's work, if it's a relationship, it doesn't matter. 5% is talent and 95% is the work that you put into it. And he says it's the little things. Do the little things right, day by day, and you will have success. Doesn't matter what you do. And that counts exactly for this topic as well. So what can we expect in the future? There will be more and more regulations regarding sustainability being implemented around the globe, basically for everyone involved in aviation. Of course, there's certain sectors that are going to be affected more than others, but in the end, it will be something for everyone. And that's the one we discussed yesterday, let's take regulation from the European Union 2023-2405, which dictates that by 2050, climate neutrality has to be reached. Is that realistic? I don't know. We'll see, but we have to try. To achieve a reduction of net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% compared to 1990 by the year 2030. And in order to achieve that, they will forbid fuel tankerings as of next year. Does everyone know what fuel tankering is? Yes. If not, basically meaning you fly from A to B. Fuel at A is super cheap. Fuel at B costs 4 times as much. Then there's a calculation process. Of course, you have to also consider, we know it from the slides before, the heavier the aircraft, the more fuel burn. So there's a calculation process. But if fuel at A is super cheap and super expensive at B, the result may be positive, and it would be a commercial, economic benefit to actually fuel up much more at A, and that means fuel tankering. But as we know, the heavier the aircraft, the more fuel burn, it's not good. EASA will, or the European Union will forbid it as of next year, except for safety reasons, meaning if you fly somewhere where the quality of the fuel is just really, really bad, then you can still tanker. There will be step-by-step approach to refueling SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, and the target is 70% by 2050. Does everyone know who that guy is? No? He's an Austrian guy. It's a Mr. Peter Drucker, and he's a pioneer of modern management studies. And he had a couple of really good quotes, and I have two of those in my presentation today. The first one is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Who thinks that's true? Do you guys think you can change a culture? Yes? Everyone that thinks you can do it, put your hands up, please. It's both a yes and a no. You can change it by the way you lead. So you're all right. Let's get to my closing words. I think it's really important to get sustainability on the radar of your team and support this by using AI tools like data analysis predictions. Like we heard it so many times during the last 2 days, communication is key. Establish a respective culture. And speaking of culture, I think it's a really important word that we say a lot, but we don't think about it too much. We have culture everywhere. Whatever we do, it's about culture. It starts the culture of a country, goes down to the culture of a family, a relationship, friendships, circle of friends, culture of a company. And I would like to highlight the culture that Web Manuals lives day in and day out. It doesn't matter if it's their work ethic, it doesn't matter if it's private conversations, whatever they do from top to bottom, starting with Martin, going all the way down. The culture is just amazing. And what they achieved is that this kind of culture is swapping over to everyone that's here in this room. Everyone. So I would like to speak out a big round of applause for Web Manuals for doing that. It's a great achievement. Yeah, and like I said, little things matter. And that's especially true for passenger operators because, like I said, we're a cargo airline, but I think in passenger operations, the margin that you have and the competition is much bigger. So I just think it's so important to get ahead of the game. We see all the stuff, it's just coming up now. You know, regulations are coming and they will keep coming even harder, even more often. We have to adapt more. So I think it's just super important to try to get ahead of the game. Another quote of Mr. Peter Drucker is, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So I would ask every one of us or of you to let's please put all our heads together and strive for sustainable, but more importantly, safer future in our industry. Thank you very much.